But do you start? Of course, you start Carbery. I think Johnny Sexton took a few knocks. We know how important he is, and every chance we get to give Joey Carbery more games time out in the field as a 10, the better. With the World Cup in mind next year, and Johnny Sexton departing the scene. But I'd probably go, and we'll talk about this next week. I'd probably be starting him against Australia. Give him more of a test. A really good side who, as Matt said, they were brilliant on Saturday night in France. They lost by a point. Very unlucky that they didn't win that game. But I'd be looking at maybe playing him against Australia. I know Johnny won't want that. He'll want to play and he wants to get out in the field as much as he can. But it's just about we know what Johnny can do, and we know he can do it, and he will do it. And I think the more game time Joey Carbery gets, because his season has been quite stop-start, hasn't it? And he's been behind the pack in Munster. That's changed so much, even in the couple of games he's played. So, but look, that's for next week. I'd be starting him this week. I'd be starting Hugo Keenan, Balakoon again. Balakoon didn't get any ball at the weekend. He needs more game time. Who else from the pack do you start? Caelan Doris, Van der Fleer, O'Mahony. You try and change it up a little bit. But you've got to be careful here and keep a little bit of strength and not completely change 15 players. So I think it's because these guys a lot of them will get a break after the November series. They'll probably get a week off. I don't know. They'll get another break at Christmas. So I wouldn't be making wholesale changes. Maybe, half and a half.
Matt, where do you see Ireland's second choice fly half? I think if I'm right, you agree with Alan. Joey should start the next two games. Is that right?
Well, if you look at in the short of it, yes. Frawley's injured. He's seems to be the heir apparent that they're looking at. If Frawley was fit, I think there is a different conversation to be had. But he's not, so I would start Joey. If Frawley was fit, I would be giving Frawley the start. I'm not sure Joey's the answer. I think Joey's had so many opportunities, and he really hasn't taken command. Now, I know he's had terrible injuries, but at a certain point, if the other guy's looking and showing potential, you've got to give him a go. And I think we're getting very, very close to that point. I feel for Joey because if you look at his career, when Johnny got injured the last season in the Six Nations and Joey played against France, it was something like only his fourth start against a Tier 1 nation. And therein lies the problem. You can't just give these guys games against Fiji and Italy and Samoa and Romania and so on, and then say, on Saturday we're playing New Zealand, you're in, and expect them to take control and run it. It's just not real. We've got to give them time in big games. And that's what the November International is about to me. Personally, I would, if I was Andy Farrell, I'd sit down with Johnny, and I know he'd hate it. I know he'd whinge and complain, and I understand why he's a competitor, and say, Johnny, we're going to use you in the Six Nations. You're going to play 4 of the 5 in the Six Nations. But right now, you're going to be put in cotton wool, and we're going to give the other guys a go. I agree with Alan. If you make 100 changes, change the term, that's wrong. They don't function. I think there's opportunities to change the back row. I'd like to see Conan and Ryan Beard start in the back row. I'd also like to see, Lothman at least on the bench, Jeremy Lothman at least on the bench for one of these games. I think he can put pressure to be a solid backup at loose head prop. The others, Beelum should start, especially this week, if Furlong's out. And Furlong to me is as important to Ireland as Sexton. Without him, we are in trouble because we just haven't got that depth. So we've got to find that depth. And here's our chance to give Finlay Beelum some more opportunity. Believe in himself as much as anything else. Like, he would have got so much self-belief after surviving, and then not just surviving, but coping extremely well against the South Africans for the whole half. He hasn't done that. Because he hasn't been given the opportunity. So I just think these next two games are great opportunities to give some key guys time on the field. Craig Casey's another one that I hope gets time, gives some backup. Of course, Connor's just, has quite a serious injury, a muscle injury that might keep him out for a period of time. That could happen at a World Cup. Connor's moving on in his age. Who's the next one? If it's Casey, let's give him time in the saddle so we know that. And this is the opportunity. There's no sheep stations riding on these next 2 games. These are you never have a friendly, but they're not. There's no trophies for them. 6 Nations is coming up. That's important. Then the World Cup. That's important. This is the time to do it.
Alan, do you agree with Matt there? Do you think Joey has had enough chances at 10?
Well, he hasn't had enough chances at 10 if he's only played 4 games before last year. So that's not a criticism what Matt is saying. But I think we are where we are now. I think, he needs more games. And I think he needs games against, top opposition. He needs to be stressed under pressure as well. He's come on off the bench in a lot of the great wins for Ireland over the last number of years. I always think back to that moment when he came off the bench in Chicago, and I was like, oh God, how's Joey going to do here for the last number of minutes? But, he did perfectly. He wasn't really tested as much. He was, so young and inexperienced. I think was that his first cap, second cap?
First cap, I think.
Yeah, it was his first cap. It was incredible. What a place and a way to win your first cap. But look, I think there's never any question mark about Joey Carbery's footballing ability or skill level. I think it's the temperament and it's the composure and the control and Sexton is so physical. He can take the ball to the line. His kicking game is on the money. He can see space. He's a real vision for what way the game is going, and he's obviously that fighting kind of temperament and spirit as well, which makes him so powerful. But I think Joey probably needs more opportunities, and for one reason or another, he hasn't got them. So I don't think Joey's ever started against one of the big nations, and we've gone, oh God, that's been a disaster. No. Not that I can think of.
No.
So
you're right.
He hasn't gone through that position where we've kind of written him off. But the time has come to see more of him. Consistency. Yeah. The word consistency has been mentioned a lot with Joey, and I think he's a wonderful player. He's a great young fella. He's a brilliant attitude. He trains unbelievably well. He's really positive in everything he does, and that's what the Munster lads and the Irish lads say. So everyone wants him to do well, and we know his ability. But Frawley is kind of chomping at the bit now. But Matt, as well, it'd be brilliant. Every team would love to have 3 or 4 players chomping at the bit in each position. More pressure, more pressure, more pressure. It makes a strong squad, and you can tweak things. And players don't really get dropped nowadays, do they? They get rotated. So, yeah, look, obviously it'd be brilliant if Frawley came through too, or even Harry Byrne came back in the scene, Jack Crowley. It'd be lovely position for Andy Farrell next summer to say, well, geez, Jack Crowley's been brilliant for Munster. They've finished strong, or Harry Byrne has come back in with Leinster and he's been brilliant too. And just put it in your head that these guys, if someone gets injured, but it'll be interesting, and I hope Joey gets the opportunity in the next couple of weeks.